Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this one is against another new chess club member. His probably, maybe, just the name is BahmanHopeful, or what I thought was initially when I saw the username, I thought BahmanHopeful. No, wait, no, it's BahmanHopeful. I don't know. BahmanHopeful, BahmanHopeful, BahmanHopeful. I quit. I'm just gonna say hopeful because I like the word. So let's begin. It was e4, c5. So this is obviously a Sicilian defense, right? A million ways to play it. d6, e6, g6, knight f6, knight c6, a6. There's a lot of continuations. But our friend Hopeful goes with knight to c6. And here I play bishop to b5. This is the Rossalimo defense. This is not as common as the open Sicilian itself. Some people play e5 here. Some people play knight f6 here. So there are a lot of moves, right? Some people play d6 here. Some people play g6 here. So it's all mixed. But I decided to play bishop b5. In this system, if black doesn't know what black's doing, then you might get in a little bit of positional trouble. But if you know what you're doing, then you'll be okay. So d6, and I castle. Now I could have also played the move c3, preparing d4, and maybe, if I plan to, give my bishop an opening, right? Maybe this could happen. Maybe this could happen. All plans, as I say, are subject to change. But instead, in the game, I just castled really quickly, and after a6, I said, okay, well, I like what I'm seeing here, because this pawn structure is not great for black. But at the same time, black can easily play d5, and black now has the bishop pair, right? So I have to think about what I'm giving up for this bishop. I am giving up a lot, but what I believe the reward will be is that it will be worth it. So I take, and I play the odd-looking move c4. And you might be like, what are you doing, right? There's a hole on d4, and the best way to capitalize on it is to play the move e5. It looks extremely odd, but it is necessary, because if you don't play e5 and you play a move like knight f6, now I play e5, and all of a sudden, after takes and knight takes, this pawn structure is in the bag for me, because I just slowly develop my pieces out, get my knight out, put some pressure. Things are starting to look good for me. So that's why I suggest the move e5. Prevents d4, and it also gives the bishop a window to develop, or the knight to get out here, or the queen to get out here. At least it gives some space for black, so think about it that way. But after knight f6, now I get an e5. This is a very important move for me to get in. If I play knight c3 here, black can still play e5, so I need to play e5 here. And the best move here is not taking, because you want to have some protection. So right now this pawn protects the c5 pawn. And you should keep it that way as the player playing black. If knight d7, it looks extremely weird, right? White might have, like, e6 or something, but after pawn takes e6 and d4, white has not much. Just letting you know that. white doesn't have much here. So in this position, I would think about maybe rook to e1. And I would think about maybe queen to e2. I have to think about those things. And if pawn takes d6, I have to think about too, because if pawn takes rook to e1, bishop to e7, and queen to e2, put some pressure before black castles. I could think about that too. And what our friend BahmanHopeful or Hopeful needs to find out is how to get out of here, right? Because you want a castle, but you don't want to lose a bishop for it. So maybe you want to play knight f8. Maybe you want to stick a bishop in front of it, you know? So it's hard to say right now. But what is certain is that pawn takes e5 is not so great of a move because now these guys, they're looking like they have no more companions. They're stuck. They have no friends. It's like this was the iceberg and part of the iceberg chipped off, right? So knight takes e5, bishop d7, and now I play d3. Very quiet move. But the reason behind it is because I want to get my other pieces involved, right? Obviously, I can play rook to e1. I can play queen to f3. I can threaten the pawns immediately. But it's more important to be a bit patient. And sometimes you want to get the other guys involved too, right? You don't want to just crash the party and be alone. You need a group of friends to crash the party to make it fun. So let's get those friends out of here too. e6, queen to e2. So now I'm building it, right? I'm saying if you play bishop to e7, which when I think about developing, you want to once again develop to a meaningful square. And the reason why I'm not sure I like bishop e7 so much is because when you bring it out one step, there's not much purpose to it, right? You want to make it seem like you have something. So bishop d6 is just a little bit better if you want to bring out the bishop. Or I would even consider maybe bringing out the bishop this way, right? Because maybe the bishop is more superior looking on this diagonal. That's just some thought to think about. But at the same time, the bishop on d6 does have to guard c5, so maybe playing g6 is not so great. But what I'm saying is bishop to e7, at the moment, it doesn't seem to accomplish much, right? It just seems to be that bishop e7 and the bishop might be left on e7 for the whole game, right? There's not much that the bishop can do on e7. It's only squares d6 or after castles, knight to e8, then bishop f6, then I might be able to understand, but as of right now, I much prefer bishop to d6, simply because it looks more active. So when I develop, I bring my knight to c3, and I say, okay, in the future, I might go to a4, and after castles, I play bishop e3. I think about knight again to a4, right? So there's always a purpose behind my development. I'm going places. Bishop d6, I play f4. I said, okay, I'm not going to go back because then the pawn's going to play e5 and this bishop might get loose. That's the last thing I want happening right now. I need to control the situation. I need to calm down the party and just chill my way through it. So f4, reinforcement saying, you're still useless back here. Queen to c7, bishop to f2. Now, what's interesting is that I really don't have to do much because here the computer suggests knight a4 with the intention that after take, queen takes, I can sacrifice the pawn, rook a to e1, and I have such a decent position that I can get it back any time of the day. So, what I do is I play bishop f2. I want to secure my pawn. I want to secure my reinforcement, but I also want to keep an eye on this c5 pawn. And after rook a b8, knight a4, I'm putting the pressure. Bishop to c8. So as you can tell, this pawn structure, in addition to it being not so great in general, the bishop back here is stuck, right? And our friend Hopeful is doing the right thing in trying to get it out of here because it's a bad piece. You want to go trade it or you want to try to get it out to a greater place. So I play b3. I keep it solid because I know that if our friend Hopeful ever comes to a6, that bishop faces another wall. So essentially, I'm sealing off the bishop once and for all. Bishop takes e5, and here I had two options. I could take on e5 this way, I could take on e5 this way. And I chose to take on e5 with the pawn because I felt like I had something down this f file, right? It was a combination of taking here and taking here and trying to go for that rook. Maybe I might get that one day, maybe I won't, but at least it's a try. Now that I think about it, queen takes e5 is not that bad either, because after queen takes, and pawn takes, knight d7, I don't have a bad position either. But what I thought was I take with the pawn, I support it with the rook, I keep the pressure going, right? After f6, I obviously could have thought about taking on c5, but I said let's take and let's play something different again. I know I can still take on c5, but I have all the time in the world to do that. So I play bishop g3. I go for this long range skewer, right? And our friend Hopeful has, well, trading and e5. So for the moment, our friend Hopeful hangs on to his pawns, right? Our friend Hopeful hangs on to the pawns. So what do? I play queen h5, and this is the moment where I take advantage of the clumsy dynamic of the pieces. They're not coordinated, right? Especially with a clumsy pawn structure. They're not coordinated. And I know that because the bishop, well, it's stuck on the wrong square. And the knight is tied down. The queen, same thing. And what I have to do is I have to catch our friend off guard a little bit. So our friend Hopeful says, I'm going to bring my knight out. Maybe I can get some activity. But nope, I'll play queen takes e5, force the queen trade because otherwise I get the rook to b7, saying, okay, maybe there's a glimpse of light here. Trying to get active, the bishop finally can come out, but after bishop takes and rook takes, our friend Hopeful resigns. And this has to do with the clumsiness of the pawn structure again. And this has to do with the bishop that never really came out. So let's reflect. I'm going to say that this move, pawn takes e5, followed by bishop to d7, and followed by e6. Like, I kind of felt like this was the start of Black's troubles, right? As you can tell, I was commanding the game, but it really took that understanding that I had to shut our friend down and ruin the coordination, tying our friend down to those pieces, those pawns, and that catching off guard, which really got me the win in the end. But it was a tough game and a good showing. So thank you, and I'll see you next.